items on our agenda. If you'd like to address the board, please stand, state your name, and keep your comments to 3 minutes or less, please. You will have a second opportunity later in the meeting. Nobody? Okay. Moving on, we have a consent agenda that includes minutes from our last meeting, the agenda in front of us tonight, which I believe we're going to move one of the items.
Yeah, I would like to move item 9A, our book study conversation, to B, and then move the high school board presentation up to A, just for the sake of time and the guests that we have in the audience.
Additionally, we have some resignations, retirements, and the payment of bills. I would entertain a motion to approve.
So moved. Support.
Mike and Tony, any comments or questions?
On the board notes, my name is misspelled. That's not a big deal.
Okay,
Huh? That's all right.
show her your ID.
We will get that corrected.
Thank you.
Okay, any other comments or questions? Hearing none, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, Mr. Micah, back to you for the superintendent report.
A couple items to update you on. We'll talk a little bit about, I'll give you an update on the bond projects in our discussion item later tonight. I will let you know there's a bill that's currently out of committee. It looks like it's definitely going to make it through the Senate. We're not sure what's going to happen with the House, but it's a bill that is dealing with the Michigan Merit Curriculum. The Michigan Merit Curriculum, as many of you know, is the high school requirements by the state of Michigan for our students. And the new bill has been met with kind of mixed reviews from a lot of different entities. One of the highlights of the bill is they're trying to create some more flexibility in the graduation requirements. The biggest, I would say, part of the bill that is somewhat controversial is the removal of Algebra 2 as a requirement for graduation, and also the removal of the world language requirement. And so there's some concern, obviously, in different members of the educational community as they look through that. There's some real proponents of it, but I just wanted you to be aware of that. I'll keep tracking that bill. But if you feel a particular way about that, certainly get with me. I meet with the legislators on about a monthly basis to try and work through some of those things, and I chair the Genesee County Legislative Committee for the Superintendents Association. So if you have thoughts that you'd like to, weigh in on that, that would be very helpful. I also wanted to let you know that I did attend my second session of the Principal Supervisor Academy. I had the opportunity to be selected to work with superintendents from across the country on this process, and I'm working with Mrs. Corbett through this process this year, and I will be doing a more extensive presentation. I will just kind of pause to let you know that it's very intensive. There's quite a bit of things that we probably haven't done enough of to support the work of principals. Principals have a very difficult job. I think teaching is a very difficult job too. Any job in this field is challenging, but one of the things that's tough about being a principal is that you have a variety of stakeholders. So you're trying to execute what the board and central office is asking you to do. You're trying to do what the parents are asking you to do. You're trying to do what the teachers want you to do, and you're trying to do what's best for kids all at the same time. And so you're pulled in a lot of different directions. And so we have some really good administrators in this school district, but I think a lot of times it's easy to overlook the support that they need to try and support the work that they do moving forward. So I'm excited to report out on that and give more detailed kind of description of that process. The other thing that I wanted to just talk through, and I know we've talked about this in policy. At our next policy meeting, we're going to do kind of our first read of the full package, and then we'll bring that to the whole board. But one of the things that's going to be a part of that is some new policies surrounding cigarettes and tobacco, and encompassing that is the vaping situation. And vaping is a real problem for our students right now. It's a challenge for our teachers. And one of the problems for a teacher in the classroom is being able to even detect, the vapes themselves. And so I had a little article that I ran across, it's very short, that I wanted to just, let you take a look at. We don't have to read it right now, but, many of the vaping devices, if you look on the back page, They can be disguised as flash drives. They can be put in pens. They're made to kind of fit into the most common materials that you might see. Sorry, Tony. They're made to fit into some of the smallest spaces, and so we've been working with our high school team to try and figure out some solutions to this. It's a very, very complex problem, but I just wanted, there's some really important and disturbing and alarming statistics about what can be placed in these vapes, and also how they're being concealed. So I wanted to just put some statistics in front of you there, talking about the percentage of students who not only have participated in this process, but also some of the long-term health effects, and what we're seeing early on is very alarming. They are definitely not a healthy alternative to smoking. So we are concerned about it, and I think as we start to go into the conversations about how we're going to handle that from a policy perspective, little pieces of information like this can help. So I'm putting that in front of you just to consider, and that will hopefully get you into our conversation for our next meeting. At our next meeting will also be my yearly evaluation. I have a self-assessment that I do based on the dimensions that I'm supposed to be evaluated on, and I know that those of you that have been here and have been trained have gone through that process. I will have my self-assessment document to you this week. I was going to have it for today, but I did not finish a couple of the dimensions. So I have that to get to you, and then you'll actually go through the process of my evaluation at our next meeting. Lots of other things to report on, but I think we'll be able to talk about those throughout the meeting today, so I will conclude my report.
So what are you going to talk about the breakfast?
Yeah, I should talk about that, and I think, for those of you that were there, I'm sure you'll be able to share your perspective. Today we had our first school board student breakfast. I appreciate Mrs. LeNave bringing that idea up, and thinking of how can the board become more active in getting feedback from the students. And so it was really interesting today to sit back and watch, and I think it was nice to have Mr. Ahern and Mrs. Germain and Mrs. LeNave there. When I sat in the meeting, I had to facilitate, and they didn't want to say much at first. They weren't real sure what to do. And just the right question at the right time, for whatever reason, it got them going, and they were not hesitant to share their thoughts. And I think that they were very, very honest, and they don't hesitate to share their mind. But it was really neat, I think, to have you interacting with them in that capacity. So I would like to suggest that we continue that practice. I know we had done board tours for a while, and those came in and out of favor, and we can do that again. But I would really like to see us get together again in January, have another breakfast, and just have some time to sit with the students and talk straight directly to them. I think it's a great opportunity. So appreciate those of you that came. So
It was a great interaction, and like Ben said, they didn't say much at first, but once they started, Mike had some really good questions that started them thinking, and we just went from there, and it was really good.
Yeah.
I hope the students enjoyed it as much as
I think they did. I think they did. So, more to come on that, and I think we should continue that. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you. And thanks, Jessica, for suggesting it.
My pleasure.
All right, going on, we have a student board representative.
Yeah, so I'm going to ask Mr. Kitchen to come up, and I will just say that we had a conversation about 6 months ago and talked a little bit about how we would really like to have a process established where we would have a student who would sit as a student representative on our board, as a student board member. And we've talked about that for a while. The high school went through a process and have made a couple selections, and so I will let Mr. Kitchen describe that and introduce our fellow colleagues here.
Yes, so first off, we'd like to acknowledge Mr. Bierman here. He's here to support what we're doing tonight with the board representative. He's been a big advocate for this through his government class of us being able to really give students these real life situations. And these two, I can tell you, are really excited about this. We went through an application process We said students had to be either 11th or 12th grade, had to have a 3-point GPA or above, and they had to have excellent citizenship. They had to get references from staff members, and they also had to write an essay. But once they submitted that, we took the applications, we called the students in. We had a committee made up of an administrator, teacher, custodian, aide, and secretary. And so with that, we asked them 2 questions. The first one was to summarize your application, pointing out the big pieces that were really important to you in there. And then also to take as much time as you need to tell us why you should be the person for this position. We had 5 outstanding candidates, and each one of them, as they came in, we could see the benefit that they could bring to this position. But ultimately, the decision was made for Mr. Jacob Winter here to be our representative. Come on up here and join me, Jacob. And then our alternative, Miss Christina Alzarca. Now, these students are involved in so many things in high school. They are very interested in law, they're interested in politics, and they're looking forward to this assignment, not only to be able to be a communication person to our high school and back and forth and kind of share what the students are thinking, but to learn the government piece of being on the board. So this is going to be an outstanding experience for both of them. And so Jacob will be at most of the meetings, but Christina will also be stepping in when Jacob is not here, and there will be lots of opportunity for both of them to be able to share out for you and share in this experience. But at this time, if you approve, I'd like for Jacob to be able to take his seat at the table.
Yes, please. Why don't you, before you take your seat, why don't you just share a little bit about your background with the board, and then Christina, you can do the same thing and
Sure.
Introduce yourself.
Well, I'll tell you that I have thought of this position before it came to fruition at the high school. They beat me to the punch. I was going to suggest it, but here we are. I'm super excited. This is, I think, one of the greatest opportunities that the high school has given a student. I hope to do a lot of good here. I'd like to sort of validate myself a little bit. I wrote down everything that I'm involved in, or most things that I'm involved in at the high school. I want to give you an idea of what I do so that you know what you can ask me about. So, in the marching band, I'm the senior field commander this year. I'm in the jazz band. Theater, we just had our high school musical production that went phenomenally. I've also done pit orchestra. I play the piano a lot. A quiz bowl mock trial, which is here tonight. Looking forward to their presentation. Class council, I'm the president of my class, which I think really works well with this position because my peers have elected me, and so I can serve them even better sitting in that seat. I'm in the NHS, the Madrigals, which are also going to perform tonight.
You'd be a good politician, man. You don't just sit down. We've heard it all. You've done a great job. You really have. You're doing good.
Thank you. Thank you. That about sums it up. I'll leave it there.
He sees
My
even better. He
point
knows
is-
when to like. He's good.
My point is I'm very proud of everything that I do there. And I'm very proud of my
Sure.
peers,
Good
my
kid.
friends. It's a family. And so I want to bring the voice of that family to this board. And I hope to do that. Thank you.
You're a nice
Thank you
young
so
man.
much.
Thank you.
All right.
Jacob, get used to the politics part of it.
Yeah,
You know what I
exactly.
mean? You talk better than most of the politicians with 30 or 40
Thank you.
years. You're good. He's a good kid. Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yes.
I would have asked for it.
Thank you.
And obviously,
That
we're
was a good
very
choice, Mr. Kitchen.
we're very blessed to
And the
have some amazing students that have chosen to apply, and Christina is certainly one of them. So why don't you introduce yourself, since you'll be here as well, and
Yes.
He's got all that stuff.
Well, I'm Christina, as you know, and I'm very excited to be here, and I think that Jacob is definitely a great choice, as well as am I, because like him, I'm involved in many activities, such as the Madrigals, such as theater and cantando, cantiano. I play tennis as well. I'm involved in many things and therefore bring a lot of different voices from each, because we have a lot of different groups at the high school, and therefore bringing like 2 people like us who do have connections to all those people definitely brings an overall perspective to each environment, and that way each voice could be represented from the high school itself. So I'm very excited. I would love to give my input on some things when I have the opportunity to help improve our school, which is already so great, but there's always room for improvement. So we could always give our input in to always improve everything, and therefore set the next generation of dragons to be up for success, which I definitely think the school has. It's given me so many opportunities from the performing arts to academics, from AP classes. Like, we have so many options that other schools don't have. So I really respect all of you for making the choices that you make to make our experience the best. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yes.
He's not taking all your thunder. You have just as much. You were the second.
Congratulations.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Nice to meet you.
Are you junior or senior?
I'm
Senior. Okay.
Congratulations. Thank you.
We're happy to have you both.
There's several circles.
So this is an exciting time for us, and Jacob and I briefly talked yesterday, and the three of us are going to get together and talk a little bit more about how the position will function within, the board itself. And obviously, while they're not voting as school board members, we've talked about how they might be able to provide input. And so I think it'll be a really great opportunity, and more to come, and maybe even some conversations at our policy meeting. Good.
I think so, yes. I'd like to participate in committee meetings too.
Yeah.
That was
That'd be great.
actually going to be one of my questions. I didn't know how it played out with their
Yeah,
schedule during the
we
day.
talked about that today. I think that'd be a great opportunity.
Welcome,
Maybe you should be our ad hoc legal counsel if we have a question.
There you go.
Send it to him.
There you go.
Seeing how he's a student, he can find it for us very quickly.
That's right.
And we'll save some legal fees. Maybe you can do that, Jacob. I would love that, because we don't, I think that's a great idea.
That's true.
There you go. I just already gave you your first assignment.
All right, perfect. Fantastic.
That's great.
So we don't have anything under number 8, informational items, but we do have a Swartz Creek High School board presentation.
Yes, so we had talked in past board meetings, and I know one of the things in the past is that we've had different groups come. I know Mr. Melke had suggested, possibly getting some of the schools to come and present, and I think it's a great opportunity. We have amazing students and we have amazing staff, and so it's one thing for you to sit and hear me talk about it, but it's a whole nother thing to see it straight from them. So I'm going to ask Mr. Kitchen to come up, and they're going to talk about a lot of things high school today.
Right. I'm going to try to be as brief as possible because we have presenters here who are going to share some things that are going on, but just kind of a quick overview. I first want to say this is my 3rd year at the high school. This has by far been my best and most favorite year. And I think the difference is, like, our student body just seems so different to me this year. They're really fun, and lots of personality, lots of spirit in this group. And let me say, just to go on to say that a couple of weeks ago we won the ABC 12 Spirit Drive. So that was awesome. Our students showed up in full force and did a wonderful job representing us. Some of the big things that are taking place at the high school, our main focus continues to be relationships. And I think that our staff, that they're doing a wonderful job with building relationships with students. We're looking at trauma-informed care, which is huge in our building. And we're taking the time to look at some of the obstacles and things that our students are going through, and how we can address that, not by lowering expectations, but by teaming up with them and meeting the expectations together. So there's a lot of that that's taken place. I do believe that we're getting a better sense of empathy, and but still holding students to those standards. There's things that they have to do, but we know that together we can get those things done. The teachers and department specialists have done a wonderful job working on the district initiative of the competencies and standards, really moving and bringing together a really nice document with that. We have our obstacles. I would say our biggest obstacle would be attendance. We're addressing that. We have an attendance task force this year. They're doing a wonderful job, made up of Rochelle Dersha, Kelly Hale, and Jody Morgan. And with that, we have letters going home all the time to parents when we have students that are coming to school late or not coming to school at all. We have parent meetings that are scheduled with them. And this year, we're really pushing the truancy piece in the courts. We have taken it to that step where students who are not coming to school are getting assigned probationary officers. And so that we're addressing it head on, but that continues to be an obstacle that we're really facing at the high school. I want to bring our madrigals in right now, because what I want to do for a majority of our time is really highlight programs and things that are going really well. If you haven't heard the Madrigals before, this is like one of my favorite singing groups. And I'm going to ride their coattail all over the place because they're absolutely awesome. I asked if they could come tonight, so they're going to share a song with you. And what I would love to see out of every program in our building, from athletics on, is this sense of excellence. They work hard, they're determined, they're motivated, and they get results. And so what I'm going to do is have them share a song, and then afterward, a couple of our students are going to share with you just a quick synopsis of their experience at the high school. So I give you the madrigals.
So this year, we were very busy in the fall. In October, we were asked to participate in Mott's second annual Chamber Choir Invitation. We were at the first one last year, and that was on Friday the 18th. And then the next day, I got a phone call from University of Michigan Flint asking us to be part of their Chamber Choir Invitational, which was on Monday the 21st. So we were packing, trying to get things done. The piece we're going to perform for you today, we performed at both of those pieces, called "Come Away, Sweet Love," and "Old Madrigal."
Come away, sweet love, and play thee, lest grief and care betray thee. Fa la 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 la. Come away, sweet love, and play thee, lest grief and care betray thee. Fa la 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 la. Leave off the sad lamenting, and take thy heart's contenting. The nymphs to sport invite thee, and running in and out, and running delights thee. Fa la 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 la, fa la 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 Leave off the sad lamenting, and take thy heart's contenting. The nymphs to sport invite thee, and running in and out, and running in and out, and running in and running and running in and delights thee. Fa la 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 la, fa la 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 la, fa la 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 la
Students, Angel, why don't you start? I have a couple to tell you about some of the stuff they're involved in at the high school.
Hi, I'm Angel Langford. I'm a senior this year. This is actually my second year in Madrigals. I'm also a participant of our drama club and mock trial. And I can honestly say that without drama club and choir since like 6th grade, I would definitely not be anywhere near the person that I am today. Most of my friends, the group that I hung out with, ended up in the alternative or not going to school anymore. But I can honest to God tell you, choir really put me on the right track. It really did. With these people that I've known since like ever, some of them elementary school, it's been one of the best times of my life, and I really don't think I'll ever find an experience like it. I think that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No, I can't top that. I'm Micah Earl. I'm a junior this year, and like she said, I'm in drama club as well, and being in choir since 6th grade, I think, it's been an experience. It's changed me. It really has. It's such a positive thing to be a part of this amazing group with these amazing people. I make amazing friends and relationships that last for the rest of my life.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much. And just let me say, this is excellence right here, and I appreciate you guys. You always work so hard. You always represent us well. Thank you, Mr. Luke, very much.
Thank you, Mr. Luke.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, young people.
Thank you
Thank you.
very
They need to
much.
give you two some lessons.
Up
Up your game a little bit.
Great job. Thanks a
Thank
lot.
you.
Thank you. Absolutely.
Great
Thank you
work.
so much.
I want to say that I just joined that group this year, and never before have I been a part of such a dedicated group. Everybody is so committed. It's amazing.
And I think, I mean, I can say the same thing about our band. Our band is excellent. In our drama department, they do a wonderful job. So I'm just so proud of our arts department. All right, so we believe that learning can take place outside of the school day. We firmly believe that, and as a result, we offer lots of opportunities for kids to participate in clubs. And so what I'm going to do now is turn this over to Mrs. Manning, and she's going to give you kind of a taste of what our students have access to after school.
Hello everyone, I would like to say thank you for this opportunity. First off, I'd like to give kudos to Mr. Clarence for helping us with that technical support. So I'm standing to the side so you can see, but we have updated our website. We didn't have a good spot for our clubs and how parents in the community can access that. So if you look up here, up on the general information, we have our school clubs, and if you scroll up just a little bit. So we, one of our goals at the school, like Mr. Kitchen said, is to build relationships. We want to build relationships outside of the 7:30 to 2:20 time zone that the kids are there at the school. So we have several staff members that are volunteering their time before school and after school to work with our students. So up here on the board, we have 28 current clubs right now, and I have 3 students in the process of starting 3 more clubs. And they're broken down into 3 categories. We have our competitive category, we have our extension category, and our leadership support club category. And I know we don't have time today to go through all of this, but if you see at the bottom, parents, community, the students can find access to who's in charge of the club, when the club is meeting. They can email the teacher any information instead of having to call the school. We may not know the teacher's in the classroom teaching. All of the information is on there. So at the bottom of the pages, when you go home and look at this, we have pictures we're uploading, information that's going on this on the website to highlight that. So right now, also we have our proposal form that's on there. We also have our own page for a National Honor Society, because we have a lot of outside resources. Like at our last admin meeting, someone wanted to have NHS to volunteer. So they come over here, they talk to you guys, or have the secretary try to find the information. So everything is going to be on our website. So if they would like NHS to do some outside hours, they can click a form and it goes straight to Miss Williams, and she has that information right away. So without prolonging the time, I want to highlight 2 clubs. I'm going to bring up our Vice President of Mock Trial, Miss Gomes.
While you're doing this, we've got some pamphlets for mock trial.
Thank you.
Just to be sure. Right, yeah.
Alright,
Thank
so
you.
I am Morgan Gomes. I am a junior this year, and as Ms. Marion said, I am the vice president of the mock trial team, working wonderfully with Jacob Winter, the president. And there's the pamphlets. You can read a little bit about us, but we deal with obviously law and investigating cases and putting together like a real life case, and going to compete in real life courtrooms where a judge and sometimes jury members will vote on our performance or score our performance. And other than like how it works, it's a very what it benefits each and every one of us in the way that we're exposed to law, because a lot of students, unless you take the law class specifically, most typical high school students aren't exposed to law on a daily basis, and it's very beneficial for each of us to be able to come together after school to experience this class-like thing where we go more in depth with the actual law process. And I'm actually going to bring up last year's Vice President Adriana Summers, if she would like to say a few words on her experience in this club, as she is the oldest member that we have still today.
Hi guys. Yeah, like she said, I'm Adriana Summers. I am the last of the founding team of Mock Trial. I'm the oldest member. And honestly, I can say coming into high school, besides basketball, because I'm also on the varsity basketball team, I never thought I'd find a club like this. Like, creating so many bonds and relationships, just like Madrigals. We are just so family-like. We get to know the ins and outs of each other, what makes each other tick, and we can use that to our advantage and help us grow stronger within our cases. And honestly, I remember the last 2 years, our last case, it was the last time we'd worked with the seniors, I cried. I bawled because I've just grown so many relationships with them, and I know I'm going to cry this year for all my youngins like Morgan, because I love these people because I get to go see them every day.
And not only that, but they work around everyone's schedule, whether we're in the play or in other sports. We work around each other to still help benefit our team. So that's why we're still going to go and have an amazing performance at our upcoming case, even though we have other priorities as well, because we're just that strong together, and nothing can beat Swartz Creek mock trial team.
Just could someone give a quick summary of the case that we're working on right now? Just to give them an idea.
So the case we are working right now is a bit different from what we normally get. Normally, mock trials deal with criminal cases, but right now we have an immigration case that we are working on. And it's very different for a lot of us because, as I said, we're used to criminal cases, having a defendant and then either trying to put them in jail or get them a sentence, or on the opposite, trying to keep them free. But this is quite different and something a lot of us have never dealt with before because as a lot of us have grown more acquainted with law, not a lot of us have touched immigration law. And so it's a very new experience for us that we're all very excited to get into and learn about.
So, if you don't mind me interjecting really quick. So, I just joined this club just a few weeks ago, and I already feel like I know everybody in the club. I think it's exceptional to have a club where we can practice something. So, I know a few people in here want to go into law, and while we do have law classes, this is an excellent place outside of school to practice what you want to go into. I think we need a lot more clubs like this, and I think we're going in a great direction. Actually be able to practice law in a court-like atmosphere. It's exceptional. It's never done anything like it before, and I'm glad I can participate.
Can I ask a couple questions? Do you do one case per year, and when can somebody join the club? Like he just joined a few weeks ago. Is this an all school year long club, or is it just a partial year?
We have 2 cases mainly per year, which is we have 2 competitions.
Okay.
Our biggest one is the immigration case that we're working on right now. So that's our primary case of the year every year. But a member can join honestly whenever they'd like to. Once we've started a case and assigned roles, they can't actively work like within the case for our competition, but they can still get acquainted with how we work and what we do. And if you miss joining for the first case, then you can always come for the second.
Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Morgan. And the last one, our newest club, we have our diversity club, and I have Mr. Page here just to give a brief overview of our club.
She asked Mr. Page and Mrs. Anthony here.
And
Well, as she says, I finally got my wish. And I'm going to tell you how this kind of came into fruition. When I first got hired into the district, one of the things that I was told was that they wanted me to build relationships with the students. And one of the things that one of the mentors that was giving me information about Swartz Creek, they said, what I want you to do is pay attention to the 100 hallway every day at 7:15 and at 2:15 every day. Okay, so as Mr. Kitchen knows, that's where I'm at every morning because of the fact this is where all of the traffic flows, where all of the students that are usually sometimes the behavior issues or the students that are the outsiders fit into. So I had asked Mr. Kitchen, and I'm going to put him on the spot here, about 3 years ago when I first started, could I start one of these clubs? And he kind of blew me off and this, that, and so last year we were all going to a varsity basketball game, and Mr. Kitchen, as you can see, we both like to eat. So we went up to Tony's, and I had the grand opportunity that Mr. Kitchen's boss went up to Tony's with us. So he said to me, kind of sarcastically, Mr. Hefton said, I thought you were supposed to be building some diversity and inclusion inside of my school. I said, it's funny that you mention that. I've been begging Mr. Kitchen to let me become involved in that. So, lo and behold, we come here and finally got it up and off the ground. It's diversity and inclusion, and the first thing is kind of like when I come and I do the diversity and inclusion for the staff. The first thing people start thinking about, probably because of the fact I'm 6'3" and I'm chocolate and I'm sexy, is that it has to do with the color of skin. And that's not it. That's the least thing that we're really trying to touch on. We're trying to touch on how students, though they're so very different, they have so many different things together. And also giving them a voice of the students that are the minorities in the school, whether that has to do with culture, sexuality, anything that makes them feel like that they're different, to give them a voice and to be able to have an arena. One of the things that we've talked about and doing is that once a quarter is putting a couple of the students that are inside of the diversity club, giving them an opportunity to talk to the administration and talk about some of the things that they would like to see move forward with. We've already kind of got a students that can say, hey, can we do something better with Black History Month? And telling them, well, that's fine, because of the fact that that was an argument that Miss Manning was ready to jump aboard on anyway. If you guys want to be more active in it, then that's fine. You guys come up with some creative voices, and we'll do that. Working on something, example was, I went to the opening game yesterday, and one of the students in the diversity club, one of the things that we talk about is that the inappropriate use of the word bro when a young lady is referring to another young lady, So turning around, hearing one of my students use the word bro and say, hey, we kind of talked about that, and we're out here in Davidson, and we're representing that you have on a Swartz Creek uniform. Do you think that that's really appropriate? So just kind of giving the students an opportunity to learn some things about culture, learn how things are different and how things can intertangle, and how, even though people are different, how they have so many things alike. And one of those examples is that I am a proud product of Flint Community Schools. So is she.
So am I.
Okay, so one of the things that we touched upon when we first met are we are both Flint Central Indians.
Yes.
Okay, and we talk about our unique experiences because Central was kind of like what Carmen A. Swartz would look like today, where the minorities of myself was becoming the majority in the school. But it was a very great element to get an education in, because you learned a lot about things that people that you were different about, and you learned how to coexist. So that's what we're doing with our diversity group, and I think that we're moving in the right direction. We're still small, and the one challenge that we have is the fact that when they hear diversity group, trying to get participants that are not either African American or biracial to join. So that's the struggle that we're trying to get past the barrier. And then I'll let Ms. Anthony talk.
So, thank you, Mr. Page. So I'm Lori Anthony. I'm an English teacher at the high school. And Mr. Page, we were just chit-chatting in the hall one day, and he mentioned that he was going to start a diversity club. And the first thing that I said is that I would like to be involved, if you will allow me to, based off of our connection being Flint Central Indians. And even though we look very different, we have a lot of the same experiences through high school. And I grew up in a very diverse area. But we probably have different perspectives too because of our race. So I knew right away that I wanted to be involved. I wanted to, and we're talking a lot about relationships, and so we know, just like with your breakfast this morning, that change will not happen if we don't listen to the students. We do a lot of talking and sharing, but sometimes we don't stop and listen. So I thought this would be a really great group to stop and listen to the students and to see what their needs are. How can we change? And are we diverse enough? And are we changing with the times? So that's something that we're looking at together. It also allows us, I think, to be an advocate and a mentor, because we all know that we all gravitate towards people that look like us. I want people that look like me to feel comfortable to go to Mr. Page, but I want kids that look like Mr. Page to feel comfortable to go to me. And so we're really working hard that diversity is not, like Mr. Page said, it's not just African American, it's all cultures. And that's what I love. The other thing that I really like is that we're having open dialogue about those things. I think the problem is that we don't have conversations about things. We think things, but we don't ask questions. And in our group, I love because we have open dialogue about culture and about race. And it's a tough group because those are conversations that no one wants to touch upon. So I think that's really important. And we started the group, and I put on my notes that we're small, but we're mighty. The kids are really, they want to make this club big. And Mr. Page is like, you know what, let's just keep it small right now because we're trying to make changes within the school. So the first or the second meeting, we asked the kids, we wanted them to come up with points of pride pride or areas that they think that we're doing really well within the high school with diversity, and I just wanted to share the points of pride. And then I want to share with you the things that we want to work on as a club. So the points of pride, Mr. Manka, you mentioned in your meeting, they said that the teaching staff and the understanding and the way that the teachers treat all races was one of the #1 points of pride for our school. So I feel really good. I know Mr. Page feels really good about that, but we always know we can do better. The other thing that they were really prideful, and it supports everything that you've witnessed tonight, is the fine arts program. They rated Swartz Creek High as top-notch in the fine arts, which is wonderful. And the third thing, they said the curriculum and the learning. They felt like that was a really strong points of pride. And then the 3 areas that they really wanted to work on this year, unmotivated students and lack of respect for academics. They felt that that was a problem that we could maybe help solve with diversity, which I thought was really interesting. The use of the N-word and derogatory terms within the school, and how we speak to people, how we speak to each other, and how we treat each other is an area that we want to help improve within our school. And then the last thing is that a lack of diversity within all clubs. I think we're doing a really good job, but again, we could do much better. So those are just some areas that we're looking into, and I'm really, really happy that Mr. Page allowed me to be like a co-sponsor. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Question?
Yeah.
How many people are participating in the group, and how often do you meet?
We meet every Thursday after school, and away to a person's heart is their stomach. So we prepare
Break
a
bread.
pizza. So we break bread, we prepare a hot meal for the students. And probably about 8 students on average, 6 to 8 students every week.
And this is just at the high school only, it's not?
Yes,
related to the
this is
middle
just
school?
at the high school.
Baby steps, baby steps.
Right, right.
Keep it small.
Right.
Is it the same 8 students?
What's that now?
Is it the same 8
It's
students?
open to all students.
Yeah,
So
but
right
you
now,
said every week.
Every week, there's, well, a lot of the students, like some of the students that are back here are part of the diversity club. So sometimes the clubs kind of overlap.
Right.
And they'll either say, hey, I gotta leave early, or I can't make it today. So for the most part, yes.
Same kids.
And I think the food part's really important too, because that's culture, and that's how you get to ask questions, you know?
Conversation over bread.
Yes, exactly.
I just have a comment, actually, not just to you, but to the whole high school staff. I think it's awesome, and the only reason we have that many clubs is because your staff step up. So if there aren't teacher or staff sponsors, they can't have those organizations. And to have 28 available for the students speaks volumes to your staff.
I just want to touch on one more other important comment that I thought a student brought up. And the funny thing is, we talk about relationships in positive ways. And one of the things that a couple of the students brought to my attention, they said, and the thing that we identify is some of the teachers that we have really great relationships with. We also see the struggles that other students have with those students because of the fact that they don't connect or they don't fit the way I fit. So when you have students that are saying, I'm being treated really well, but I can see where there's room for improvement, you know, that's a conversation piece.
I would just like to say I'm so excited about this. This is fantastic because I think the middle school had a diversity club and then Mr. Suhanik left. And so at some point it would be nice for this to grow into the middle school because I think sometimes we come together and then we separate and then it's hard to come back together. It's really wonderful what you're doing and I appreciate as well the honesty to be able to look at where we can improve and what we're doing well and to build upon that. So I hope it goes good. Do you need help with anything?
I always can use help.
Right.
Really? So where at on Thursdays exactly?
We've been, because Mr. Pepper let us adopt his room because he's got the stove and the oven in it.
He likes to be involved,
You know,
too.
he likes to be involved.
He likes to be
the
involved.
free food.
Good to know.
It's 310, is that 310, room 310?
So I have a question, but 28 groups, do you all work together, say this time of year, to help the community in any way? Is there an
Some of our-
opportunity for that?
I know some of them.
Yeah, some of our groups do. They have community events, it's especially big with our National Honor Society. That's our big main one, and they get together and do events in the community.
So how about helping out families in need or volunteering in the community, anything like that?
We do that throughout the school. Mr. Page is doing that, plus NHS is doing that, and
And
we
also
work with the church in
leadership.
town.
And leadership, our leadership class too.
Our leadership class does that.
What church is it? Methodist or
The church is working with
That we did that.
Cornerstone Baptist.
Cornerstone
Cornerstone
Baptist?
Baptist.
Yeah, Pastor Kim, yeah, okay,
Yeah.
good.
Thank you for the,
Good, thank you.
for that.
Jim, can I ask a question? Jim, how, you said we have 33 groups, roughly?
Well,
28.
28, okay.
as of today.
28, and how, what do you think the average high school has that is equivalent to our size?
that's interesting.
I want to know that to see where we stand at on that. I'm a bit, on stats, so I think that's a great number. And if we're doing, I mean, you could have 50, but if we're not giving anything back to the kids, we got 50 groups, look at us, look at us. You see where I'm going with this? We got 50 groups and we're doing all these wonderful things, but if we got 28 and we're doing all these wonderful things, which it sounds like you guys are doing, and I just think it's something I'd like to know about what other schools are doing.
I can send the message out to my Flint Metro League principals
Yes.
to see what they offer, and I can get you those.
Because that's a huge number, and I think it's great that you're doing that. It seems like it's a lot of extra work for the staff. I appreciate you guys' dedication.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you. It's very commendable. It's a lot of groups.
Yes. So we would not be offended if any of you wanted to go home and do homework.
Yeah,
or
it's snowing and
something.
it's getting nasty out.
Great
Except for you.
papers.
Yeah,
Great
except for
papers.
you. Yeah.
And
Thank
we are
you.
so
Stuck to
grateful
the seat
for
on
all of
camera.
you to be here and all that you do in the community. And we hope you have a wonderful holiday with your families.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you very much.
The cream jacket.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, that's, Thanks, Nick.
What's your first name again?
Me?
Yeah.
Thank you so
Oh, you're welcome. So,
Most people just call me Jack.
I was like, that's a loaded question.
Let's look like it.
It's a loaded question. It depends on what you do.
Yes. She just asked me if you're my son. I said,
If this position
yes.
is so
Son. It's not biological. He's an adopted through.
okay, sure, we'd love to have you. Okay, thank you. Thank you so much.
Most people do call me Jack. And
Alright.
Chuck, you probably know my grandfather.
That's why I say your grandfather's Mr. Sayer, yeah.
Yes, you probably know my grandfather.
I've known your,
More than likely know
and
my
your
dad
son,
as well.
your dad,
Yes,
because you guys came into the government. Yes. That's what I
Yes,
thought.
so you probably know both.
Yeah, I know them both well, Chris and your
Okay.
dad, yeah. Nice people. But that's why I got confused when somebody called you a different name. I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't know them by that name. But- Okay, good.
Thank you, Mr. Kitchen, for bringing the groups
Thanks for
together.
allowing the opportunity.
I just said to Ben, it's much better than just a PowerPoint presentation. To actually have the real people here, so thank you very much. All right, moving on, we have the Coddling of the American Mind book study.
So we are on chapter 7 and 8, I believe. So I'll kind of just, yeah, so this last chapter that we did, chapter 7, highlights a lot of alarming statistics around adolescents' anxiety and depression. And the amount of depression and anxiety that has really seen a tremendous uptick in the past 10 years. And they've drawn some interesting parallels to some different things. So I thought just open it up if anybody had any thoughts or, maybe ahas or things that, they just sparked the thought or idea from reading about the anxiety and depression that a lot of our students face
At a young age, too.
at a very young age.
It's actually getting younger and younger as times change, but I found it alarming, and I apologize, I looked everywhere for wherever I stuck my book after the last meeting, but I read those chapters, and lots highlighted too. I know one that I literally got out my highlighter for is how significantly more, and I want to say it's like 60% more in females than males even. And the impact that our social media and our technology play in that. That was, I mean, I think it's something I feel like we all know, but it's just alarmingly getting worse. And then this is my life on a daily basis, dealing with the health of children, but how much of that is now psychosocial and mental health, and it's sad to know, and it's scary to think about the lack of resources that we have available to help that. So I I mean, I guess I push it back to our district to constantly keep that forefront and making sure that we've got as much support as we possibly have. I know our school district in general is expected to do more and more, but it's just hard. I mean, there's not enough in the medical field, there's not enough in the school district, there's not enough support at home. It's just, it's an alarmingly increasing rate, without anything to provide back is what's scary.
Yeah, I was also incredibly, having 3 daughters myself, just reading a little bit about the tremendous disparity of even the way that social media has an impact on females. And you've probably heard, and they talk about it, you know, FOMO, or fear of missing out. And when, you know, they see a friend, it used to be you would go to a mall, right? And maybe your friend was off doing something else with another friend. You never knew about it, unless somebody said, oh, this was going on. Now everybody's putting everything they do out there, and so there's this incessant feeling of loss, as though you're missing something when you're not going to those things. And that's it's concerning, to say the least. And obviously as a parent, I struggle with that. But even as we think about our kids here, you mentioned resources, and so we've been really, that's why we've been actively kind of coming to you guys and saying, hey, we need to think about more social workers and you know, counselors, and it's just mental health for children is something that can't be neglected, because it has an impact on their learning, tremendous impact on their learning.
We had a brief conversation this morning about students having a place to go to talk to people as a peer, and some concerns about students that might have some mental health issues, but not knowing where they could go. But you're right, Alicia, the resources are very limited.
But also getting rid of the stigma, so that they know, not only is it having that available to go, but knowing that it's okay to go.
One of the things that I really appreciate about this book, I think it's a pretty balanced approach. Some would disagree with that, but I think they do a nice job of trying to provide statistics and research around some of these. And so one of the interesting things on this was screen time, and how much time is devoted to screen time or device time. And basically out of all the studies that they found is that less than 2 hours a day seems to have no deleterious effects. So if you're, it's not to say that screens are bad, because it's actually healthy for them to understand the technology that they're growing up with and understand how to use that technology. But what they found is that after 2 hours a day, the amounts of depression and anxiety rates spike, and they go up significantly. So you think about, as a parent or even as a school, how can we try and inform, and I know we're talking about planning a parent, you know, and family workshop coming up in March. I think this could be a part of that conversation, just some beneficial conversations with parents about the research around, hey, you don't need to be afraid of screens and just ban screens, but I think when you think about it over the course of how this impacts a child's ability to have conversations, to experience life, certainly has a huge impact on depression and anxiety from this chapter as well. Anything else on that?
Oh, I was gonna say, I had a side comment to Joanne, but I was just gonna say this. If we could get Jacob a copy as well.
Oh, we will. In fact, Jacob and I talked a lot. We'll start to, where it's appropriate, getting him, you know, some of the notes and things like that, so that he can, you know, have some.
I would just, it would be interesting to have him read this.
Oh,
again.
absolutely. I'm
A
sure he'll
younger
have it
you.
read faster than we have.
Yeah. He'll probably do his homework a lot faster than the rest of us.
So.
I wanted to jump on what Mr. Main said about our breakfast this morning. The students brought up how the Peers Who Care program no longer exists at our school. One of the comments that was made, and this was repeated over and over again, was the staff are very helpful, and you can go to a staff member and they will help you, but students want other students to talk to. They want a program in place for that. If we could look into reestablishing something along the Peers Who Care lines, I think the entire student body would be very appreciative.
Why did it fizzle? Why is it out of commission?
Mr. Micah could talk a bit about it, because he talked to our group. It has something to do with state regulations on how you can earn credit.
So, it used to be that, without going off too much in a rabbit hole, but the state has accountability requirements for attendance. And so, for example, students historically might have been like, I'm a teacher's aide, or I'm an office aide, or I'm working in this, and then I do peers who care and those types of things. A lot of those positions had to be gone with the new pupil accounting guidelines. So that's changed a bit for some of our student activities at the high school. But Mr. Kitchen, I think, has some ideas about how to reinstate some of that. But it would be similar to what you heard tonight. It would be a club type of a situation, but where a student might be able to access a peer, as Jacob's describing, so it's going to have to be just probably administered a little bit different.
I just knew it was a very good program.
Oh, for sure.
It was a class before, is that how that?
It had a class component, yes.
To it.
Yeah. So.
But when you were talking about the that same bullet you were talking about, the screen time, they talked about smartphones and then other electronic devices, and that to me is scary. The games, some of the things that they do, and they're communicating with people around the world playing these games, and some of these kids get tied up for literally hours. It becomes an addiction, and it takes away from family. It takes away from face-to-face time with family and other friends, and I just it talks about the primary cause of increase in mental illness, and I truly believe this is causing a lot of mental illness and maladjustment in our children.
Yeah, I think for a lot of our students, gaming can be a great outlet. There's a lot of benefit to being involved with an activity like that. I know that they're actually talking now about expanding, even college, Big Ten is talking about expanding college sports to, EA sports leagues and having digital gaming scholarships and all of those types of things. So the world is definitely changing in that direction. So I think there are some benefits. But I think, like with everything, how do you create balance? And if you're there for 5 hours, 4 hours without other human interaction, other than through the device, the research is not strong on the mental health side of those things and the effects that could have on you long term.
We just had Thanksgiving, and my grandkids, 11 of them were over, and there was about 7 of them who at different times picked up their phone. In a group, we got a room of 25, 30 people, and here are these young kids playing on their phone, and whether it's gaming or texting or whatever it is, and they're just really not interacting with the family, and that really disturbs me.
Yeah. If you go to a restaurant, just watch how many couples are on a date and they're texting on their phones instead of talking to each other. So it's the students are sponges. They observe and they watch and they see those things. So.
I will say, I think, from a parent perspective, I used to actually have a lot of comment and feedback that I didn't appreciate the overabundance need of my children needing to have their phone at school. And I've seen a huge shift this year, that it's like, nope, put them away. We have other technology. If we need you to access Google or Docs and whatever, even the internet, anything, we will provide you with the devices to do that. And there's more of a push to put those personal devices away so that the social media aspect of that isn't as forefront. I've at least experienced that as a parent, that I think that is definitely much better. That as early as 2 years ago, I would have said it was the opposite. I was the one barking that, no, my kid does not need to have his phone at school, but unfortunately needs it in order to function in the classroom, and it's much different. There's definitely a shift.
So our investment in technology may have a positive consequence.
It has been making a positive impact, and I think, and the staff and the rules, regulations, whatever you want to call them, that they've put in place to minimize the use of cell phone. Most of the teachers, at least for my students, are asking them to put them up. There's pockets to put them away. There's the expectation not to have them out. I see it in the workforce that it's horrible. People lose jobs on a daily basis because you just can't break away from it. So, instilling those responsibility traits in our students too, I think is huge.
Absolutely. I was going to ask, bullying. I don't know how big the problem is with bullying in our schools. I'm hoping it's very minimal, but Isn't the phone probably a big part of that communication of bullying, developing, creating a victim and targeting a victim, attacking a victim through the smartphones?
Yeah, I would say that bullying is an ongoing problem that we've been dealing with for years. We do a lot to try and mitigate that. But I'd be interested, Jacob, and maybe you sharing what your perspective is, as a student.
I don't think that bullying is a huge issue at our school. I think that
That's good to
I
hear.
think we do a very nice job. Technology plays a huge piece in that, though, and so any concern that you raise about, well, if you have your phone out, how's that going to relate to a potential bullying situation? It's true. It's so any effort that we can take to show what is appropriate use of technology and what's not is a great thing. I can just tell you from personal experience that I have great interaction with my peers. And I tend to put more trust in the students, because when you do that, they start to realize through their own consequences what's right and what's wrong, and what leads to good interactions and what leads to bad ones. So I tend to err on the side of student responsibility.
Yeah, we tend to see the bullying spike really in middle school, is where we're seeing more of it. It seems like students, and this has kind of been my experience as well, and watching students as they grow, and my daughter going into high school, and she's dealing with middle school as an 8th grader right now, and coming home and having all these conversations, and but it seems like as kids get to be sophomores in high school, they stop worrying about what everybody else is doing and more about what is front and center in their own lives. And so I think it spikes in 7th grade. Everybody's jockeying for position, and you have a lot of that stuff going on. So we have a lot of supports down there to try and help with that. And I certainly would never want to say we don't have bullying, because it's something that I think every school deals with. But we're constantly trying to find ways through our work, and Mr. Heatherton's spoken about trauma-informed care and the work that he's doing there, and restorative practices, and trying to help people understand how do we treat other human beings is important.
You're spot on. First of all, I think that is where the majority of it would be more in the middle school ages. However, I've seen or feel a good shift, that it has improved, due in part mainly to our Positivity Project at the elementary school level. So starting from the younger ages of instilling that relationships matter, people matter. You may have differences, but finding ways that you can get along, or just not even interact with that individual, whatever it needs to be, but building those skills early, that it's starting. Now we're seeing those kids that kind of started in those programs now in the middle school ages, and then eventually will be to our high school. We're starting to see a improvement along the way with that.
That's what I appreciate and enjoy about this whole idea, of this year, the first few months of really focusing on relationship, because I think that is key to life, actually.
It's huge.
Mr. Mike, I'd agree with you on middle school.
Yeah.
Want to make sure that the whole board knows that is true, 100%. And in fact, I was shocked when I became a high school student and realized that everything I thought would get worse in the social arena got better. It's very strange, actually, but the maturity level at the high school is what causes that. Kids start to realize, if I like this activity and you like that activity, it's fine. We can enjoy it. So if there's any place to focus on bullying prevention, it's the building right over there.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on that chapter? So for the sake of time, let's talk about paranoid parenting at our next meeting, because I think we'll get into some really good conversations. So if you haven't read that chapter yet, take your time to look that over. Jacob will get you a copy. But paranoid parenting deals with, it's the third explanatory thread in the book, and it talks about this culture of overprotection. And there are some legitimate reasons why parents feel they have to do that, but there's some interesting dialogue in that chapter that I think could lead to some conversations about how we deal with that here at the school as well. So I think that'd be good to dive into at a future meeting.
Thank you. Thanks,
Should we
everybody.
get 2 books or alternate 2?
I think we should. Thank you, Mr.
I don't mean to leave you out, Christina,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Okay. Moving on, we have bond update.
Things are moving forward. We have had we did not have a steering committee today. We'll have one coming up on the 18th. We have successfully had ground broken at Morrish, Deek, and Elms. We start breaking ground at Cyrene next week, and Gaines hopefully over the winter break. The design packages for the athletic complex and the high school student lot have been turned into the construction management team. They hope to get those bids out here in the next couple weeks. Obviously, we're dealing with the holiday season, so I would anticipate by the 15th of January that you'll be looking, the bids will have come in, they will have certified on some of those, and we'll be looking at that at our January board meeting. I already know that we're going to need 2 board meetings in January because it looks like the end of January we're going to need to have another round of approvals for that package. We also have, which is time sensitive, we also have the middle school package, which is going to be delivered to the construction team December 31st, so by the end of this month. Which means that the middle school in its entirety will have completed the design process, and that will be going out to bid. I would imagine that that will be coming to the board for approval in probably the early mid-February timeframe. So I'm trying to give you an idea of kind of what to be expecting for those. And then the next package to go out there is a lot of the site work for the elementary schools. That is the parking systems and parking lots. And the high school project will be completely designed by March and turned into the construction team. So you'll be looking at the fall of 2020 starting the high school, summer to early fall the middle school, and having the stadium complex complete for the fall of 2020 season. So that's trending and tracking well. But I just want you to be prepared and updated that while there's great things happening, construction's moving forward, the next big round of approvals is coming in. We're going to be watching those numbers pretty tightly. I will say that the athletic complex, just because of the nature of it, does have a number of alternates. So what that means is we're putting a base bid out there to say this is kind of the bare bones plan. And then there are additional pieces that could be looked at. So as a steering committee, we're going to have to be talking about that. And then as a full board, we'll have to be talking about the direction that you're going to want to go, because there'll be some choices to make that'll be a little bit more complicated than the elementaries were. So when we get those, we'll be able to address that.
So the steering committee is the 18th?
Yes.
What's the percentage then? Where we at on percentage-wise for money spent?
We have about $10 million of work that's out there right now.
That we've already approved here.
Yes. So, we're
So
a
that's
quarter of the way,
1/4
a little under a quarter of the way. So, yep.
And our holdups at the county level have been resolved?
Yeah, had some really good meetings. I think the county's doing actually a really good job of pulling some of those things together. There's a better understanding of how the submittal process needs to go through. Some of the things that have been a little unique is that we have, as you know, when we took the resolution a couple months ago to do local code enforcement, just kind of, they're approving this, the state still has to do fire, the county still has to do soil erosion, water. So, just kind of learning the different components of that. I think we're in good shape at this point, and like I said, you'll be hearing more of an update even at our next meeting as we start to get those packages out. Obviously, they're all sealed bids, but by that meeting in January, I would suspect we're going to be ready to make some recommendations that first meeting right away. To put it into perspective, I believe it was $2.5 billion of bond work was passed for schools in the last election in November. Ann Arbor schools alone passed a $1 billion bond proposal.
Yeah.
So the amount of work that is competition for our school is tremendous. And so right now, just to put it into perspective, our press box and grandstand, so the new stadium bleachers, by the time you award the bid, which we're hoping will be in January, there's a 7-month lead time from the time that you order it to the time they actually can deliver. So that's how much work is being done. So we have to start getting ahead of, if you want this, you have to know you got to order it now. So that's going to be a challenge.
So you're saying if we approve that budget for the stadium, it'll be in July before they can start?
No, it'll be for just the bleachers themselves. They wouldn't be fabricated and delivered and be able to be installed until then. Now, there's a lot of other things that can be going on with the field and that, but just to put it into perspective, a lot of this is just flat out, there's a saturation of work and not a lot of workers to do the work.
Right.
So it's just the product of our times right now, and every industry is dealing with it right now. So, yeah.
Could you talk about any complications that we've seen with bond work at the elementary schools? Is there anything that we had expected and it doesn't look like it's going to be delivered?
There's nothing that we have expected to be done that's not going to be delivered. I do think that people's expectation, maybe, of what those things were, right? So when we put out a concept of, hey, we're going to build a maker space or whatever, and it's going to look, we don't exactly know what it looks like, we don't know the paint colors. There are people who get attached to, but I thought it was going to be exactly this. And in the design process, you have to look at budgets and numbers, and you're saying, okay, well, you know, for example, we went out to bid just our offices, and those came in $1 million over budget, which we didn't want to start off so far behind. So the board made the decision to hold off and send everything back to bid. And so when you're doing that, you're starting to say, okay, what could we scale back a little bit, right? So you're making some decisions. And so, you know, I think the elementary projects are right on scope, but they may have looked a little different in some initial rendering that somebody saw, and so they kind of get attached to, but I thought it was going to be this, and it's not. And so it's just trying to help manage expectations that people might have more than anything. But I'm not going to say that by the time we get through this in a few years that we will not have had some bumps, but so far it's been good. But we're always on the defensive, because when you're dealing with construction and these things, you have to be very open to the fact that, you know, bids could come in high again. You know, we might have to start to scale some things back, and those are decisions that the board will have to make. So, yeah.
All right.
Good.
Any other questions for Ben? All right, thanks, Ben. Appreciate the updates always.
Yeah.
Did you have anything else on the school board visits or the breakfast?
I just wanted to maybe provide a discussion time for those of you that went. Do you share my sentiments in wanting to see it continue? Do you have any? I mean, I maybe thought you might want to provide some update to the board on your experience there.
Well, I would say absolutely. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I appreciated it. As I said earlier to the kids, that I appreciated their candor and their willingness to have the conversation with us, and to give me, even though I have kids in the district, to still have a better understanding of what their experience, what their perception is, just to help give us a better understanding of what's happening in our district.
I think the only thing I would change is what you mentioned at the end, is putting us in a semicircle so we could see each other and so we could hear. Because it was hard to hear across the room, you know, and some people have little voices. So it was great though. It was really, I am always inspired when I sit with students, because you're all so articulate and you're so thoughtful, and I know that you're gonna have a great future. And even the ones that were more quiet, you know, they were there for a reason, and hopefully they'll come back and find that it was helpful. Some of them were very open and honest, wouldn't you agree, Jacob?
Yeah.
And I think that that's really important, you know, talking about some of the frustrations with restrooms, talking about the staff, you know, really how they embrace the students, those types of things. And I don't know, Jim, you weren't there for all of their comments, but I thought, you know, it was a reflection of your team, and it was really nice.
Who was selected to go? Just a question.
It was mostly a group that I have met with in the past, which is kind of an advisory team, which is essentially a lot of the class officers or student council members. And so we haven't formally met this year yet, but we thought this would be a good way to kind of kick it off. So,
What do you wanna do, Jessica? You wanna do it once a month? Is that what your suggestion?
That'd be kinda nice.
Okay.
Or every other month.
I make a
because
motion, we do it, I make a motion, we do it once a month, just set a date, let's set a date. That way some of us can come, we can come, if some of us can't, there'll always be somebody there, 1, 2, or 3 of us. I think that's what you're asking, right? Kinda, I mean, that sounds fair.
I wouldn't mind doing that. I'd also,
Once a
or
month
we
is fair.
rotate it if we did the high school and or maybe
Middle
middle
school. That's fine.
school.
I agree. So that's every
And
other.
How about we
alternate
do it
every
twice a
other?
month, so we can get 2 free breakfasts out of it? I mean, I'm all for that, because
They
I
did a
was,
great job with
I was under the
breakfast, by
weather
the
this
way.
morning,
Yes,
but
they did.
I'm all
Yeah,
for
yeah.
that.
Yeah,
Is Michael cooking? Is he doing a good cooking?
he
for
was
us?
there.
he was cooking.
Then that's a no-brainer. Let's
There
do
you
it
go.
once a month at the middle school and high school. Can we do that?
We could go to the middle school, yeah.
Okay.
How
I'll
about
make a
you, Mike?
motion and get it over
I
with.
definitely,
That's
as
how
I
you get
said
stuff
this morning at
expedited.
closing, I definitely would like to see it continue.
Like
And
it.
I didn't hear any of the conversation about the round table, but that's an excellent idea.
Poor Mike.
For those who may have had trouble listening or hearing, maybe if it was just a little bit smaller and it was a circle, it would be easier for me.
Okay.
But
That cafeteria has a really nice high-end PA system in that cafeteria.
Yeah, we could do that. Get a microphone even.
Yeah.
So.
Actually, the board did meet there on a few occasions, and we all had the microphones. Everything was set up for.
I don't, that'd be okay. I don't know that we need to have a microphone, but I'd try it without it first.
Okay.
Because if I can hear it, everybody can hear it.
I think I would only ask, because I'm very visual, that we wear name tags. Because I felt bad, I had to ask a couple of the ladies, what was your name again, afterwards, because I didn't see their name.
I think that's a great idea. Yeah,
You
you
know,
have a
that
bunch of
way we
kids
can
there,
remember.
Teachers, that's a
I
great
remember
idea.
who was sitting where, but I don't always remember what their name was.
Do we need a motion for this, do you think?
No.
All right, then let's just set it up, make it happen.
All right.
Anybody who can attend, I would encourage
Yeah.
you if you have a chance. You
Some
don't
of
have
us
to
can't,
stay the
some of
whole
us can,
time.
but
We
and-
have student council in the middle school
We'll make it.
level too,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
I think I think it would be ideal to do both.
Great. We'll
One
rotate
comment,
around.
one comment that stuck out to me was someone said, "You're the Board of Education. You know, you govern this district, but I don't really know who you are." So any time that you can have a direct interaction with students at any of our schools, that's a positive thing.
I think that was Haley who was sitting next to me, and she's responsible for social media for the high school. And so I want to talk to her because she was interested in having the board talk about some of the things that we're doing, and I think it would be a perfect area for you to talk about what we're doing and how you've contributed, Jacob, but to understand a little bit more about what's out there and how we can share some of the things that we look at, some of the challenges that we face, and you know, updates about in general about maybe what's going on with the bond. Some of those students you pointed out won't be there when it's finished, but for the freshmen and sophomores, they'll actually be able to enjoy it for a few years.
You know, it's sad the parents don't come. They
Yeah.
don't come to the board meetings, and we really need them to interact too.
But it was great. Thank you for organizing it.
Sure, we'll continue that.
Yeah.
You know, that really supports that idea of relationship. I recall going to school here many moons ago, and I had no idea who the superintendent was or the school board was. And putting us in the cafeteria and having that relationship develop between school board and students and administration, that's perfect.
Don't let him fool you, he was expelled
They brought me back.
He knew exactly who everybody was, that's why he
I
was
said
law
it many
enforcement.
moons ago, John.
Yeah, that's why he went in law enforcement.
Okay, so next on our agenda is board action items, and we have an employment.
I'll let Mr. Kitchen come on up.
This poor lady's been sitting here.
She is commenting.
We should have put her at the first of the list.
She's commenting that she's learning a lot, and I'd like to invite you up here with me, Ms. Guzak. All right, so I think the stars really aligned here. She has had the opportunity to work with some pretty high caliber people who spoke very highly of her, and Mr. Micah had the opportunity to work with her, as well as Alice Lashbrook and Morsh. And so, for 17 years, she's been driving an hour to and home from work, and so she's ready to make a change. She lives in Grand Blanc. This is a perfect opportunity for her and for us also. And she was unanimous with our hiring committee. We're very excited to get her on board with the experience that she brings, and so I recommend for your consideration for hiring Ms. Jody Guzak.
I want to say how excited I am to come to Swartz Creek as a high school counselor. This meeting, like, I was already excited, and then to hear you talking about anxiety, depression, bullying at a board meeting is just incredible. So I could talk for an hour about all the different hands I've had in 17 years in education and in the counseling office, but I was trained by the University of Michigan Depression Center in CBT theory to work with students in the school setting with anxiety and depression. I'm excited to bring that knowledge to Swartz Creek. It's something that I've been really passionate about the past 2 years. And my other big win in my previous district was in post-secondary planning and career and college attainment. So I'm excited to learn more about the Swartz Creek community. Your theme of relationships really hits home. In my prior district, we worked closely with school board, parents, community stakeholders, and teachers and staff and students in our school to kind of bring community within to the school to really support the students in a well-rounded verse. So I'm really hoping that we will be able to work together in a more personal capacity myself with all of you. I don't know if that's been done before, but that's something that I'm excited to do. So
I have a question. You come from a larger school district, correct? What's the secret sauce to getting to know the students that are assigned to you?
Well, I think that even though it's a larger school community, I'm actually going to have less students assigned to me here, so I'm really excited about that. I think you need to get to know every kid and see every kid in your office at least once a year. That's like the minimum. So making sure that you're touching base at least once a year and pulling them into the counseling office and getting to know what they do outside of school and what their goals are for themselves. Those are easy conversations to have, and being present in the hallways and in the classrooms, getting into the classrooms, presenting in classrooms, and really being more than just in an office has been kind of like a goal of mine.
Thank you for that.
Are we replacing a position, or did we had somebody resign?
Yes.
Yeah, that's right. Okay.
All right. So with that, I would
Make a
entertain a
motion.
motion.
Second.
All right, we have Chuck
Hire Jody. Sorry you had to sit through
and
this.
Jessica.
No, this was, I learned so much that I was like, this is my thing, like everything you're talking about.
All right, be it resolved that the Swartz Creek Community Schools Board of Education approve the employment of Jody Wilson Guzak as a counselor at the high school as presented. Any comments or questions? Hearing none, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Congratulations.
Congratulations, Jody.
Welcome
Thank
aboard.
you. Welcome. Thank you. Congratulations. Thank you.
So excited for you. Congratulations.
So you'll be there tomorrow?
Okay.
You have A through what?
Okay, moving on. We have an exciting high school field trip before us.
Yeah, Mr. Kitchen, I'm sorry to keep tapping on you, but would you come back up and explain the field trip for us?
Sure. We have about 25 students who would like to participate going to Cobo Hall. It is 2 nights, overnight stay, and they'll be participating in lots of opportunities to learn acting and theater, opportunities for them to get into breakout sessions, and even an opportunity to earn some scholarship money. So it is something that they've done in the past. It's a wonderful experience. The kids love it. Chaperones will be going along with them. Mrs. Cooper and Mr. Drudge would be the sponsors who will be taking them down. And we have all the medical papers and things filled out and completed, ready to go pending your approval for them to be able to go and stay overnight.
How many students?
25.
How many chaperones?
We're
Two?
It's going to be a 10-to-1 ratio of students to chaperones. So there'll be
I think we should have
2
more.
adults and 2.
Can we have one extra?
You want to go?
No.
Oh, that's right.
No, I did my law enforcement 36 years. I babysitted a lot of
I
people.
will do what the board tells me to do.
I mean, you're saying there's 2 chaperones for 25 students?
No, there'll be 1 for every 10 students.
And how many students are going?
25.
So there'll be 3 chaperones?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I thought you only said 2. I said that wasn't
No,
enough.
two sponsors.
Got it, yeah. I got it. I didn't understand, because I don't want them kids down there running.
Where are they
We
staying?
were all teenagers.
At the Renaissance Center.
Okay.
Yeah, they'd be having
And
fun.
who's picking up the bill? Is it a grant or is it are they paying for themselves?
They pay, yes.
Yeah. I'm one of those students.
All right, Jacob, you'll be designated chaperone.
Head student chaperone.
No bull S down there. Don't embarrass the school district. I make a motion that we send him down there.
I'll second.
All right.
Okay, I have a motion and a second.
You heard
Be
that.
it resolved that the Swartz Creek Community Board of Education, I guess SOC School Board of Education, approved the Swartz Creek High School field trip to Cobo, Renson, Detroit from December 13th through December 15th as presented. Any comments or questions?
I think it's a fantastic opportunity.
Yes.
I would agree.
Good.
Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I hope you have an amazing time. I hope you
I
have an
hope you
amazing
guys
time.
get some money. I hope some of you get some grants.
Yes,
It'd be
that would
great.
be
It would be
amazing.
wonderful.
Yeah, we have.
That would be good news if you bring it back to the board. I'd like to hear that.
There are things called IEs at this event, so they're individual events.
Mhm.
So we have people that are doing acting, where they go and they'll give a monologue. They, do whatever they ask them to do, and they compete for scholarships. There are people who are in the tech positions. So there are people going there to design costumes, to present costumes that they've made, to design lighting systems, sound systems. So it's sort of a 360 capture of what theater is like, and you get to compete.
Who's giving the grant money? I mean, that's potentially there. Let me ask that. Do you know?
Well, from what I understand, there are colleges
Oh,
that
okay.
attend this event, and they sit back and watch.
Good.
And then they will present money.
Hey, you taught me something. That's great. I love it. Good. I hope you guys make us all proud. Good.
Okay, with that, we have the opportunity for public comment. If you'd like to address the board, please step forward, state your name.
Hey,
and,
you guys,
and keep your comments to 3 minutes or less,
Okay.
please.
My name is David Pobosic, and I'm a senior at the high school. Just one thing I would like to talk to about with the board is more flexibility on the schedules that we can choose depending on our own individual circumstances. I'm not talking more for the lower. I am a dual enrolled student at the high school. I also attend Lansing Community College. And I'm having an issue right now that one of my classes at Lansing may not go next semester. And it's actually the high school credit standard that might be messed up. To fully attend high school, you need to have 6 credits per semester. And as a student who has worked these 3 years, I have already gathered around 30 credits or something, an amount of credit. So I have the credits I need to go to high school. But if my college class drops, then I'm in a pinch of I don't have the flexibility, even though I have all my graduation requirements done, that I'll have to find another course that doesn't really fit with what I'm trying to go to. So basically, I have right now about 56 college credits. So I'll have to take 3 college courses to get my associate's degree. And if I was forced to take an extra class, if my classes dropped, I would be taking courses that don't count for anything just to meet credit requirements that I already have, way more requirements that I've already completed. So I've talked to my counselor. She said up at a board level position that it's inflexible to have the 6 credits. I would like to ask you, is there any flexibility in the schedules of students who have already met a significant credit requirement?
Can I pose a question back to you? Is it not state requirement, like it's out of our hands? of how much they have to attend?
No, actually there is flexibility, so we can work through that with you.
Okay, so
Yeah.
do you just ask my counselor to speak with you, or when would I have this?
Yeah, so
situation?
David, I wrote your name down, and then we'll work through Mr. Kitchen happens to be here, so yeah, okay, so we'll definitely take that up, and there are opportunities for that. So the state requires a certain number of credits, including the types of classes you have, and so as long as you your transcript has met all of those, right, we can work with your counselor to show them, work with them on the flexibility. So they're right. There are certain policies that do provide a structure for the typical path, but there are also flexibility options that we can talk to you about.
Okay, thank you, I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And I would applaud you for taking the initiative to get
Absolutely.
ahead of your education.
Yeah,
That's
thank you
amazing.
very
You've
much.
done
That's
that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Very ambitious. Well, why is it here at the board level, though? Why haven't we helped him before it got here? I'm just wondering now.
Well, it's just that I personally have talked to my counselor, and this is an issue that hasn't come up before
Okay.
at that level.
Okay,
So when go up to someone, they don't have the particular authority, there's never been an exception yet
for your case.
to take my case.
Okay.
So therefore, you have to go to the appropriate authorities to ask what is allowed and what should you do in your own situation. So I figured the best course of option would be to talk to the people who decide do you need to take the 6 credits or do you not? Because the counselor doesn't have the authority to say, oh yeah, just take 1 less credit.
Well, we can't guarantee anything, but I'm sure Jim and Ben will take care of it, and anything they say is good, we're gonna help you.
Okay,
Because
thank
you got a good
Thank
initiative,
you.
you're getting a good education, head start, God bless you.
That's great.
And I'd like to make a comment on that too. This is an issue that I've run into too, as I try to balance my schedule. I think what David is saying is, if you have the number of credits already needed to graduate, what do you continue to have to take until graduation? Is there policies in place right now for that?
Yes, and they're probably not as clearly laid out as what you're describing, because it's so rare. So, but yes, we have worked through these issues, and we can come up with a solution. So
Sure, it's happening more and more. I had my credits before I graduated from high school, but I still had to take some
yeah.
BS classes, as they said, just to get through. And I was doing co-op because you got credits. Remember that was big in the '70s.
Oh sure.
And '70s, yeah, mid '70s, early '70s.
Yeah.
So I had all these credits, and they're like, "You're done," but they just couldn't excuse you from school.
Sure.
So you had to take a certain amount of classes to, maintain, I guess, probably a head count for the high school or whatever.
Well, we're
with-
doing a lot with
that,
our
so.
early middle college and some of those
Yeah.
programs now. So we have been having lots of conversations about
And we
students
didn't have that
are expanding.
availability in the early '70s.
Right.
It was all co-op credits. That's
Yep.
what it was for us. Well, good. Thank you. We're going to help you out, young man. Ben gave you.
And we're gonna learn something through
Yeah.
your experience too, so
Yeah,
thank
maybe we
you as
won't
well.
have this problem again. So thank you for bringing that to our attention.
Okay, welcome.
Hello, I'm John Sayer, and some of you might know me as Jack. I'm a recent former student. I just graduated last year. I'm in mock college right now, and I work over at Gander Outdoors. First, I'm here because I finally managed to get the time with my schedule. I take 5 classes over at Mott. I plan on coming to more of these, so I hope I don't annoy you too much. First, I just want to praise Miss Manning. I love hearing that our school is doing great with the clubs and such. And Mr. Kitchen, you two, I'm very proud of you guys. These two right here, they're great people. I'm glad to see that they're up here. But with those two, I actually have a question to pose to you guys. Do you guys have any plans on integrating the student opinion more with the school board, or do you have any plans with integrating the students more into the bigger picture of what's going on in the community?
So I think by asking Jacob to join us, or the person who was chosen, and having Christina here as well, is our start. We tried this several years ago, and it wasn't as successful as we would have liked. The people were great, but their availability was limited. And so we've come back to this, and I don't think we can do this effectively. I think the breakfast this morning was eye-opening in that we as a board need to be closer to the students, and albeit high school students, but that's where we need to be. And to have Jacob here, he's very involved in the school. He would be a great representative, so will Christina. in his stead. I think that's our best start.
Mhm.
And we'll see where this goes. I don't think we know all the answers, but as demonstrated by this evening, you know, Jacob's not afraid to speak up. I tried to encourage him to speak up. He sent me a very wonderful email in advance of sitting on the board, and I said, you know, don't be afraid. So he is not afraid. And I think it will be very helpful. And I think the breakfasts with the students will help, and we'll see where that goes. It would be nice to relate to the middle school. That is one of the hardest places. I think 7th grade should be abolished. It's so hard for kids.
We all made it through it. That's the
And
message.
so did our kids. I think does that answer your question? I think we're in a phase where we're trying to learn and we're trying to understand and not be judgmental, but to try to learn from what's going on and find ways that we can connect with the students so that maybe they can help us make a difference.
It's actually a great answer. Thank you. And you did talk about in the beginning the vaping thing. As a former student, like I said, I happen to have a close personal connection with this. A lot of my friends back when I was in high school, actually they did vape. I'm sorry, I hate to be the one to break that to you. But am I over my 3 minutes?
Go ahead.
Okay. What would be? Are there any plans to potentially mitigate the problems that are with it? With kids doing it, some of them do it in class, and they do it in the hallways. Are there any plans to potentially, I don't know, set more consequences or change how that works?
We have a policy committee, and we've had a conversation that will continue, hence the article that Mr. Meinker brought this evening. We're very concerned. You have 2 healthcare professionals sitting here at the table who are very worried about the consequences, especially in young people. And it's not only illegal, it's dangerous. And so we will do that through policy. And we know that's a challenge. And that with about 25% of high school seniors reporting that they may be vaping, that's really disturbing to me.
Me as well. Would there be like more to try and reduce that number in our school specifically? Would there be more consequences to that if they're caught with it, or would there be anything to help students to maybe stop doing it for the ones that are? Would there be anything like that?
Yes, that's actually what Mr. Germain's talking about. Through the policy committee, we determine, you know, what would the parameters be, you know, for that. And then that's also then a conversation that shifts back down to our administrators at the high school that will start to inform our handbooks and how do we lay out consequences that are appropriate as well as supports and kind of balancing those two things. So yes, it's definitely on the forefront for us, as you well know. It's a big issue right now.
Okay,
I'd like to invite John Jack to the policy meeting on the 16th, Monday.
Monday the 16th, what time?
0700.
I was gonna say, did you tell him at 7 o'clock in the morning? He has college.
0700.
I can make it if it's 7.
Well, that's before his class.
My first one starts at 8. My last one ends at 7:30.
Jack, I want to actually thank you because you mentioned support for those kids. I think that's something that we need to keep forefront too, is not just the consequence piece, but the support and the help to be able to get through that.
Right, because I have friends that they started back even in freshman year or earlier, and I've been trying to get them to stop, but I can't. I don't know if it's the ability to talk them out of it or what, but I can't. So if they had maybe even a healthcare professional in the high school to tell them what they're doing and what the potential harm would be to their body, or to even give them ways to help them out of it, that would be a cool thing to see.
So I'm gonna have to.
That's fine. That's fine. But I wanted,
in all fairness, but I do appreciate your comments, and we would invite you to join us.
I would love to.
And come back here often. Okay.
Bring
Thank
coffee.
you. Thank you very much.
Well, that's a 3-part thing.
Okay.
Enforcement, consequences, and counseling.
Yep.
So I mean, I don't know why we keep messing with this. We don't let kids smoke cigarettes walking down to school. And when we do, we kick them out or we suspend them. So it's simple. Enforcement, consequences, counseling. Because if they are addicted to it, then we do have I think, an obligation as the healthcare people say to help them get off that. So,
Mhm.
good, thank you. Jack?
All right, thank you very much. Comments and questions from the board? Anyone?
I have some. I would like to acknowledge, I'm going to the volleyball games in the last few weeks. I don't know if they were there before or not, but the Swartz Creek Middle School, their positivity project signs, the banners that hang, and those are awesome. Those are really cool throughout the building. I already said it, the breakfast today was fantastic, and I appreciate our students. Jacob at that breakfast mentioned about how our marching band plays the opposing team's fight song and how we get acknowledged for that so few schools do that. So I want to acknowledge our marching band for doing it and bringing it to our attention. That's something great that I think that our district's doing. And I want to congratulate Jacob and Christina both and encourage you to come, Christina, and even you'll be able to give input. You can give your 3 minutes.
I have some right now if you would allow me.
Yeah, and I have to say thank you to the Madrigals, and I think that's it for me right now.
Okay, I'm sorry if I missed you earlier.
That's okay.
So we know you're Christina.
Yes.
Okay. Yes.
So
Circa,
I actually
yeah.
have a specific request slash problem proposal. So I personally and many of my fellow classmates over here are involved in AP classes, and I'm sure they have as well noticed that specifically for the science courses, we have a lot of labs to do, especially in chemistry, biology, physics as well. So usually what happens is that we have to stay after school for a portion of our time just to complete those labs because we don't have time in class. And AP courses, they're college courses. And in college, they have 2 hours, 1 hour for a lecture and 1 hour for a lab. Since this is a college class and we're doing practically the same things as we would do in those courses, I think it would only be proper to establish 2 hours, especially for the science courses. Some other courses would not require that, but that would help us do a lecture and then do a lab instead of having to split it 2 days or having to stay after school a lot of the times. And especially our students are involved in many after school activities as well. So that would help us out tremendously and probably improve our grades for the AP test. And as you know, our school is like one of the top in Michigan right now for AP classes, so this would help us even further to accomplish our goals and get our college credits earlier.
Thank you.
Great idea.
Thank you.
Thanks. That's my proposal. Thank you.
So, I didn't stand up earlier, but I'd like to mention something now, if that's fine with all of you.
Gotta state your name.
My
Keep your
name's
comments
Isaac
to
Ferris.
yourself.
I'm a junior currently. I think it was great that you brought up depression. I'm currently in AP language with Mrs. Winscoe, and we actually wrote a paper about school depression and what are the causes. And throughout that, we had 3 main causes: students' home life, standardized testing, and social media. And I think it's great that you're trying to wrangle social media. I think that's going in a great direction, so I just wanted to congratulate you guys for figuring that part out. So building on her with AP classes and her wanting to have 2 hours for science classes, I think that's a great idea. However, I think there'd be a point of conflict with a lot of students who would want to put other AP classes in their schedule. So maybe being able to have additional hours after school, if you could work with a teacher or other students in the classroom to do those labs would maybe be a little bit more beneficial. Yeah, I think that should end. Okay.
Thank you very much.
No problem.
Thanks. Any other comments?
Right.
Go ahead.
I just have one question. I thought this was gonna be on the agenda and it wasn't. Has the Murray Crapo extension been
Oh, yeah, we were supposed to talk about
settled?
No, so what I've done is appreciate you bringing that up. I had it on the agenda, we asked them and reached out to them, they're actually gonna be coming to our next board meeting so that they can do a full presentation and you can ask questions directly to them. So I thought it would be better for them to give you an update before we do anything else, and then you can hear from them, ask questions of them.
I appreciate
And Yeah, and then they, you know, before the,
Okay.
yep, so they'll be here at our next meeting.
I should have brought that up, I'm sorry. I knew Ben had taken it off, so I should have mentioned that earlier.
Okay.
Thanks.
Are
Okay.
we still paying the water bill?
Yes.
Okay, I didn't know if we were gonna cut the water line off or what we were gonna do to stipend that. That's fine, we'll answer it, yeah, it's only another week away,
Yep.
we'll get it done.
Anybody else?
Yes, please. Oh,
Sure,
of course.
Jacob.
No, Mrs. Pan.
I
go
just
ahead.
think, the interaction, the participation was excellent tonight. I really appreciate this. This was a great board meeting, and I think there are a lot of good thoughts exchanged, and, looking forward to this continuing.
Thank you, Brian. How about you, Jacob?
Well, I spoke to Mr. Monica, like he said, we had a meeting, and I've met with several other people. They've talked about my role here and what it could look like. What I really think is unique about my position right now is that what I do will define, to an extent, how this role functions in the future. And I want to set a good precedent. And I want the person who fills this role for years to come to be very involved, very active, and very willing to make the student's voice heard. I hope to accomplish that. I'm going to do my best. I want to come to policy meetings. Also, academic achievement, I think, would be a great place for me to give some input. I'm excited about that. About what a few students said with the science classes, I have a question for you, Mr. Monica. Is it possible to make a single class 2 hours long within the school day?
Yes.
Okay. That would be fantastic. The 2 classes in particular, AP Chemistry and AP Biology, those have a massive lab component, and I hear about students who have to either come in early or stay after to complete their coursework, which isn't right. So if you could look into that, that'd be fantastic. I know in the past, the high school had a 0 hour. Could you speak to that for a moment? What happened to that? Why did that go away?
There's a myriad of reasons. A lot of it's based on student interest and how many students we have that can take those classes. The other piece of the what you're describing, which we can get into further at another time, is the opportunity to have like a AP Science lab, which a lot of schools have moved to. I personally have had experience with that, where you're looking at a you know, maybe a course that's running for an hour and you have a semester of lab time. So first semester you might have AP Science lab that butts up to your AP course, and then you're taking the lab component and the course as separate classes, but you actually have a 2 hour block of it. And then you flip-flop. So you might have AP Chem, AP Bio flip-flopping in it. So it's a big puzzle, but it can be done. There are things that, you know, Mr. Kitchen has actually brought that to my attention to talk about further. So I know that that is something that we've had conversation and dialogue. A lot of it's going to boil down to available staff to teach those courses, because they have to be certified teachers, as well as student interest. So those are the 2 levers that kind of drive that. And when I say student interest, it means, you know, obviously if there's 8 people that need it, we don't necessarily have the ability to run that, you know, course. So, you know, it's that those are the 2 levers. But yeah, we can explore that further for sure.
Okay, great. I think that enrollment in those classes would spike if we had it as a longer period. Students would know that they have way more time to complete things, and they're not going to have to make those obligations where I have to stay after school to complete my coursework.
Sure.
So I'd like to talk to you more about that, and
That'd be good.
we can explore that.
All right.
Anybody else? Okay, Mr. Kitchen, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mrs. Manning, I think, Mrs. Guzek, you're still here? Christina, the mock trial club, let's see, who else? The Madrigals, Mr. Page, Mrs. Anthony, who did I miss?
Mr. Bierman?
Mr. Bierman. Thanks to everybody for being here tonight, and with that, we are adjourned.
So since I talked to you this summer,
Yes.
We've been trying to, I mean, we've had it for years in the past.
Okay.
You're
Sleeping at about, what, an hour and a half? Go back?
The architect.
Well, out of here now?
You've
Glad to see your background.
Sure. I'll be sure.
Thank you.
Well, yes,
There's a lot of.
And so, do you guys back?
Come out.
No, I was just moving back, sorry.
You have the responsibility to do that.
Tell them to wait 5 minutes.
Wait for everybody around.
But I agree with what you're saying. Making these kind of decisions, but I don't have all the right things. And it's 700. So, John.
Yeah, absolutely.
John Sayer is my grandpa.
He's a house guy.
Well, he actually lived in his old house. Yeah, so when he moved out, we actually moved.
Oh, okay. So you're my good. You're good.
That's actually
Okay, all right, we'll see.
And,
So talk to you all.
I know, thank
your grandma.
not anymore.
Where are they?
She had to retire from that. She had her surgery on her neck.
That's what we have to say. An hour away. So what? 2 hours. 2 hours. But it's okay.
And then she had one in her back as well.
Yeah, so
that
Yes.
So I know.
she's still involved with the Methodist church because they